Naruto patted his shoulder and smiled in encouragement. I'll ask Mom to make a workout plan for you and a diet plan too. She knows about this stuff much more than I do. I'll give them to you on Monday, okay? So we start on Monday? Izuku asked. Yep. Enjoy your last 2 days of comfortable life to their fullest, Naruto said with a chuckle, and waved his hand in goodbye. Alright, see you man, have a nice weekend. Chapter 4. You? 4 kunai split the air at a speed that made them barely visible to the naked eye before hitting 4 different targets that had been placed randomly in the backyard of his house. Then again. And again. Eventually Naruto ran out of kunai and went to collect them before starting to practice his aim again. But this time he threw them while he was running and jumping. Miraculously, every single one of those kunai hit its target perfectly. Several months passed since Naruto had regained the memory of his past life, and ever since that day, he had been doing nothing but going to school, spending time with his parents, and training. He was training to the point of exhaustion every day, except for Sundays that were dedicated to resting and recovering. My quirk is not bad, but it has its limitations. I have to maximize what I can do with it. While he had a wealth of experience with fighting, throwing weapons, and even with a bow staff due to his memories, they were mostly theoretical. That's why, nowadays he was training his body until wielding those weapons became second nature to him, to ingrain it in his muscle memory. Training at the dojo is kinda useless these days. I can't wait until I go to UA. His expertise in taijutsu and the superhuman physical capabilities granted to him by his quirk made sparring with other people unsatisfactory. He was too good and too powerful. He did not gain anything from sparring with average people. He needed to fight against similarly skilled and physically strong people. That's why he was super hyped about UA High. The idea of an institution that would focus on developing his quirk and offering him worthy opponents to train with was very appealing. After placing 2 extra targets in the courtyard, he grabbed 3 kunai with each hand, a total of 6, and threw them. Damn, I missed one. Despite the incredible feat of hitting 5 out of the 6 targets located in different locations by throwing 6 kunai at the same time, he was still dissatisfied with himself. But he did not dwell on it, picking up another 6 kunai. He threw them once more. Hard work had never betrayed him. Immersed in his training, time flew by without his notice. He was shaken awake from his single-minded training by the voice of his mother. Naruto-chan, dinner is ready. Your father has arrived from work too. Let's eat together. If it had been him from before regaining his memories, he would have gotten annoyed at his mom addressing him that way. But now, he showed a large smile as he said, Sure, just let me pick up my kunai. Give me 2 minutes. Be careful with those knives, Naruto. You could get seriously hurt, Kushina said, frowning her brows in worry when he saw the band-aids wrapped around his fingers. Yes, I will be careful. Don't worry, I won't hurt myself, Naruto said. Your words would be a lot more convincing if your hands weren't full of bandages. Despite that his mother was in the midst of scolding him, his heart was full of warmth. Naruto had never had someone worry about his well-being in his past life. Not for small stuff like that. I didn't cut myself. Look, he said, and put down his knife and his fork and peeled off one of the band-aids wrapped around his index finger, revealing an angry red, almost raw-looking line. It looked as if it was caused by something very thin and sharp. Something that had dug into the skin of his fingers. It's from a wire, Naruto explained. I've been thinking about ways to trap someone using my knives and wire. But my hands are too soft. I need some time before my skin thickens, and I get calluses. I also need to find some wire that's more durable than fishing lines, he said, muttering the last sentence more for himself rather than for them. His father listened to their talk, very interested. Where did you get those knives, by the way? Minato asked. Naruto rubbed the back of his head as he replied, I used my allowance. I asked Mom to give me all the money you would normally give me in a month at once. His father put his knife and fork down and looked at Naruto seriously as he said, That money was for you to have fun. If you need things for training, just talk to us. We'll support you as much as we can, Naruto. Before regaining his memories, Naruto used to spend his allowance by going to arcade games together with Inuzuka Kiba, and sometimes with Izuku Midoriya too. But he had stopped doing that altogether after the sludge villain's attack. Nowadays, he used all that money his parents gave him on buying kunai, strong fishing lines, and, as of late, he had started saving up money to buy smoke bombs. Where did you get all these ideas about using weapons anyway? Minato asked curiously. I've been thinking about it for some time, especially after that guy, Bakugo, attacked me at school, Naruto said. Oh, the kid with the exploding quirk, Minato said in recognition. Aside from the memories of his past life, Naruto shared everything with his parents. He held no secrets, especially not from his mom. Yep, that one. His quirk is honestly amazing. If he gets into UA and stops being a jerk. Language, Naruto. Kushina chided him lightly. I could totally see him becoming one of the top heroes in the future. Anyway, I beat him easily because I know how to fight. But if I don't keep on improving, in a few years I won't be his match. I have to work hard to stay one step ahead of everyone. Although months had passed since his parents noticed for the first time the drastic changes in their son, there were still moments when Naruto surprised them with his maturity. So I've been thinking of ways to close the gap between me and other people that have stronger quirks, ways to take full advantage of my quirks, superhuman strength, agility, and dexterity. I got this idea from the stories about ninjas from the Middle Ages. So I've been thinking, Minato, you should see how good he is with his throwing knives. Kushina gushed, suddenly going from being worried about Naruto getting hurt in training to speaking in excitement about his skill with the knives. As a martial arts practitioner herself, she could appreciate the amount of effort and dedication Naruto was putting into his training. I'm serious. He can throw 6 knives at once and hit 6 different targets every time. It's incredible. She's exaggerating. I'm not hitting all of them every time, Naruto mumbled, slightly embarrassed at her praise. Finishing eating, Minato grabbed his plates and stood up. After putting them into the sink, he came back to the table and said, I'm proud of how hardworking you are even after knowing that you've already been accepted into UA High. Keep at it, Naruto. Your mom and I will support you to the best of our ability. Make a list with the tools and the equipment you need and give it to me tomorrow, okay? Your dad has quite a good job, so you don't have to worry about the expenses as long as you don't want some crazy stuff, the blonde man said, and put a hand on his son's head, rubbing it softly. Maybe it was a side effect of having a Fox Quirk, or maybe it was simply because he was starved for his parents' affection, or maybe because of both. Naruto closed his eyes and leaned into the head pat, a quiet purring sound coming from his throat as his father gently scratched the top of his head between his fluffy fox ears. Kushina giggled at the scene and grinned widely. Although she wanted Naruto to never go through a similar incident again, she could not help thinking deep within her heart that maybe the sludge villain's attack had been a blessing in disguise for their family. Before that, Naruto had been a rebellious teenager, disrespectful towards both her and his father, and he was rarely at home at all during the day, spending his time either at the dojo on the days when he trained, or haunting the neighborhood with his friends in the days when he did not get to the dojo. Naruto showing his affection towards them so openly had not happened in years. Unknowingly, Kushina's eyes watered and Naruto just happened to look at her at that moment. Are you okay, Mom? He asked in worry when he saw her on the verge of crying. She stood up from her chair, came behind him and wrapped her arms around him. I'm more than okay. I'm just so happy. Not one to be left out, Minato also joined his wife and son in a family hug. The sweeter his time with his parents was, the more restless he was becoming. The happier he was, the more worried he became, and the more his love for his parents grew, the more his urgency to become stronger was growing as well. Those contrasting feelings made him roll in his bed listlessly for hours that night. One moment his heart was flooded with happiness at the thought of how much his parents cared for him and loved him, And in the next moment, he would curl into a ball and clench his fists in worry due to knowing that he was not strong enough yet to protect them should a powerful villain attack them. Eventually, he stood up from his bed and, putting on a pair of sneakers, Naruto opened the window of his bedroom before jumping out. Despite falling from a height of over 5 meters, he did not make even the slightest sound when he landed on the ground. Next, he broke into a mad dash, his body appearing as little more than a phantom in the darkness of the night. He jumped on top of the 2 meters tall concrete fence of his courtyard effortlessly, and from there he launched himself on the rooftop of one of the neighboring houses, once again not causing even the slightest tremor or noise when he landed. He started shinobi jumping from one rooftop to another with such grace and confidence that it would leave parkour enthusiasts breathless from awe. The closer he got to the center of the city, the higher the buildings were becoming, and Naruto was forced to start climbing up the walls. However, while he did not have chakra and he could not use the tree-walking technique of his past life, the superhuman agility and dexterity he possessed, thanks to his Fox Quirk, made him look as if he was defying gravity while he was running straight up the wall and jumping up using the tiniest footholds he could find. Furthermore, that big and fluffy foxtail at his back that he was usually annoyed with due to how much time it took him to wash it when he took baths was actually proving its use at this moment, giving him an increased degree of control of his body while he was in the air, allowing him to even change the direction of his jump or the speed of his landing. Several months later, a wide and tall amphitheater-style room was filled to the brim with children in their mid-teens. At the front of the room, a screen as wide and tall as the room was playing various images, assisting the man standing on the stage and explaining to everyone the contents of the exam ahead. That's right, it was the Hero Course Orientation Exam. As it says in the application requirements, you will be conducting mock urban battles after this. You can bring whatever you want with you. After the presentation, you'll head to the specified battle center, okay? Standing in front of the enormous gates of the city-like battle center, Izuku Midoriya gripped tightly a 2 meters long metal staff in his hands. It's time. I will show everyone that even a quirkless person like me can do it. I'll give everything I got from my training at the dojo over the past 9 months. I won't disappoint Naruto. I will show him that he didn't waste his time and effort helping me train. I won't disappoint the expectations of my sensei either. I will become the hero I've always dreamt of being. While Naruto did not personally train Izuku on a daily basis, they did spar at least once a week, especially after 3 months into Izuku's training, when the green-haired boy had gotten the basic movements and training mentality down. He still remembered vividly Naruto's advice. You're short, and you're physically weak. Even if you went to the gym for years, it would still not be enough to keep up with those people that have quirks that give them superhuman strength. So you have to keep that in mind, man. You need to know your limits and where you stand. That's why I think it would be great for you to learn how to use a weapon first, instead of hand-to-hand fighting. I recommend you use a bow staff. I'm using one myself too. As a typical nerdy boy, his first thought was katana. But once he got home and started thinking in more depth about his choice of weapon, after weighing in the pros and cons of several different weapons, the Izuku decided on learning how to use a bow staff too. For a complete noob like him, swords were actually not that great, especially not katanas. In contrast, using a staff made up for what he was missing. A staff would grant him a reach advantage over his opponents, and it would let him generate significant power with his strike. After 9 months of arduous training, Izuku had grown a few inches taller, his body had gained quite a bit of muscle, and most importantly, he had way much more self-confidence than before. Aye. Sudden yell startled all the boys and the girls who had been staring open-mouthed at the city-like battle center through its wide-open gates. What's wrong? There are no real countdowns in real fights. Run, run, run! The die had been cast, you know. As one, the group of children broke into a mad dash and spread through the city. Izuku was among them too. Only a few moments later, a 2 or 3 meters tall robot standing on a one-wheel foot made a turn and lunged at him. It was the type that was worth 1 point. "I'll kill you!" came the robotic voice, but Izuku did not even flinch. Thanks to the hundreds of hours spent training with his bow staff and sparring against Naruto and his sensei at the dojo, Izuku had gotten used to being in a fight. Just as the robot swung its right arm at him in a wild cross, Izuku ducked under the swing, and clenching his hands on the end of his bow staff, with as much strength as he could, he swung at the robot himself too. The other end of the staff smashed into the shoulder of the robot with a loud sound of metal colliding, making its body shake and momentarily disturbing its balance. The robot only had one foot. But the result was far from what Izuku had expected. Against a regular human, that staff strike would have smashed their shoulder to bits, or at the very least, dislocated it. Against this robot, however, it proved to be useless. Not only that the robot had not been harmed in the least, but the rebound force also traveled back through the staff, and Izuku's hands became numb from pain, almost losing their grip on his weapon. It was then that the reality of the situation finally dawned on Izuku for the first time. Just how big was his disadvantage due to being quirkless? He finally understood that All Might did not just bash his dream of becoming a hero for no reason. The gap in power between quirkless people and those with strong quirks was as large as the distance between heaven and earth. Despite that his eyes started swimming with tears of frustration, Izuku gritted his teeth stubbornly. Even so, I won't give up. I just have to work harder. I will train harder, one step at a time, and the first step now is beating this robot in front of me. His mind regained its calm and he jumped back a few steps, putting some distance between him and the robot. But the robot's AI did not seem to be very high as it just charged back at the boy in front of him, like a bulldozer. Doing the same type of attack, swinging its punch again, only that it was the other arm this time. Your body may be too sturdy and strong for me to damage it. But what about that camera on your head? Izuku thought, and once he evaded the robot's wild punch again, he swung his staff from his back, overhead, and let out a cry as he smashed it against the robot's head with all of his strength. The end of the metallic staff just happened to hit the red lens on the robot's face that served as its eye, breaking it into smithereens. Unable to see anything anymore, the robot started flailing its arms aimlessly before eventually losing its equilibrium, when it bumped into a light pole and fell down. 1 point, Izuku said, and let out a scream of triumph. I can do it. Even without a quirk, I can do it. That small victory lit a flame in his heart, and his confidence soared. Nevertheless, the mock battle exam lasted only 10 minutes. By the time the exam ended, reality hit Izuku like a train. Only 3 points. He had only managed to defeat 3 robots that were worth 1 point each. Try as he might, he could not stop the tears that suddenly flooded his eyes. He was not dumb. He did not need to wait for a week or two until he received the official results to know that he did not make it. He had heard other students talk about getting at least 10 points, while there were some with particularly strong quirks that had gotten even over 50 points. Izuku's prediction turned out to be true several days later, when a letter arrived at his residence. He had failed. Attached to the letter was also a file that showed the rankings of the entrance exam participants. While he had done well in the written exam, his practical exam had one of the lowest scores among all. He had failed to join the hero course of the UAA High. In spite of his feelings of despair and depression, Izuku grabbed his phone and upon scrolling through his contacts list, he tapped on Naruto's name, initiating a voice call. Even if he had not passed the exam, Naruto had devoted so much of his time and effort to training him. He had to at least tell him the results of his exam. He owed Naruto that much. Hey, Izuku, what's up? The moment he heard Naruto's cheerful voice, the tears and the sadness that he had been holding in burst out all at once. Breaking into loud sobs, Izuku cried out, I failed. I'm sorry, Naruto. You spent so much time and effort to help me, but I still failed. I'm so sorry. Outside of his door, Izuku's mother was crying her eyes out too, her heart breaking at the pain she heard in her son's voice. And new chapter up, enjoy. Chapter 5. Combat Training. Due to his mother fussing around him that morning, Naruto was running late on his first day at U. Hi. Even so, he couldn't bring himself to feel annoyed. In spite of being in a rush, he still gave his mom a hug and bumped fists with his father before finally leaving. Seeing as it was daytime, he could not just willy-nilly start shinobi jumping on the rooftops. It was against the law for people to use their quirks in public. Even if his quirk was mutant type, if the patrolling heroes or police officers saw him doing something as crazy and dangerous as that, he would undoubtedly be stopped, which in turn would make him get to school even later. Luckily, he managed to arrive before the bell rang for the start of the first period. What a big-ass door, he thought when he saw the door of his classroom. With a height of over 3 meters and a width of over 2 meters, the classroom's door looked as if it had been designed with the purpose of allowing people of all sizes to enter it unhindered, being considerate of those who had gigantic physiques due to their quirks.
Don't put your feet on the desk. He heard a voice coming from beyond the door, covering all the other noises in the classroom. Don't you think that's rude to the UA upperclassmen and the people who made the desk?
Nope. What junior high did you go to, you side character? Another voice replied rudely, one that was unmistakably familiar in his ears. It was Bakugo Katsuki's voice.
With a sigh of annoyance at the thought of having ended up in the same classroom as that guy, Naruto no longer waited outside, his curiosity to see how their conversation would develop having died down. In his eyes, Bakugo was like an evil mixture between Kiba and Sasuke Uchiha of his previous life, taking on the worst character traits of those two.
Kiba's aggressiveness and bullying habits together with Sasuke's arrogance and pride. It's like a salad of cancer and AIDS. How is this guy in a hero school again? Deciding to stop thinking about him, he pushed open the door of the classroom. At that moment, all the chatter and even the verbal spat between Bakugo and the other guy instantly died down and 17 heads turned to look at him at the same time. "Yo!" Naruto said and raised a hand in greeting.
3 seconds of uncomfortable silence followed. But then, the class erupted into loud chatter and exclamations. A well-built and fit body, average height, sun-kissed blonde hair, a rather cute face with 3 pairs of whisker marks on his cheeks, adorable fluffy fox ears on his head and a bushy golden fox tail swaying slowly at his back. From the first moment he stepped in, Naruto became the focus of their attention.
Seconds later, he found himself surrounded from all sides by nearly 10 teens, all of them talking to him excitedly at once. I can understand the girls' reaction, but what the heck is with the guys? Thanks to his current life, Naruto was not oblivious to how cute his Fox Quirk made him appear in the eyes of most girls, so he understood why the 3 girls, one with shoulder-length brown hair, one with shoulder-length brown hair, one with pink hair and pink skin, and one with strange-looking ears, would be clamoring around him. But he could not understand why the boys were so hyped about talking to him. There were no less than 6 guys vying for his attention at that moment. "Hey, I'm Ijiro Kirishima. Nice to meet you, man," a red-haired boy said with a grin and raised his hand for a handshake.
It was when the second boy introduced himself that Naruto finally understood the reason for his passionate reception. "I'm Kaminari. Hey, is it true that All Might recommended you to UA?"
Once the boy who introduced himself as Kaminari asked that question, chaos ensued. It was only the arrival of their homeroom teacher that put a stop to it. In spite of how gloomy and no-nonsense their homeroom teacher appeared to be, Naruto decided that he liked him the moment that he saw that he took the class outside on the field to do a quirk assessment test. This is perfect. That's what I'm here for, to learn more about my quirk, to train, to become stronger. Once he explained what the test was all about, the teacher called out Bakugo. "Bakugo, you finished at the top of the practical exam, right?" "Yes." "In junior high, what was your best result for softball throw?" 67 meters, the boy replied. "Then, try doing it with your quirk," the teacher said. "You can do whatever you want as long as you stay in a circle. Give it all you got." The blonde took the ball from the teacher's hand and then went into the indicated circle. Letting out a scream, he threw it with everything he had. "Dai!" The ball shot in the air with an explosion as if it had been launched from the barrel of a cannon.
When the results of Bakugo's throw came out, the class, excitement grew. It was then that it finally sank in for them that, at this school, they were allowed to use their quirks all they wanted. But their homeroom teacher was just as quick to put a damper on their mood.
It looks fun, huh? You have 3 years to become a hero. Will you have an attitude like that the whole time? For the next 3 years, UA will do all it can to give you one hardship after another. This isn't a child's play. Find the upper limit of your quirks and then overcome them. Go beyond. Plus Ultra. 1. Uzumaki Naruto, Momo Yaoirazu 3, Shadow Todoroki 4, Katsuki Bakugo 5, Tenya 2. Seeing Naruto ranking first on their teacher's hologram ranking list, his classmates involuntarily took a second look at him. As expected from someone recommended by All Might, was what most of them were thinking. He had taken the first or second place in most of the tests where someone's quirk did not offer them a landslide victory. For example, Okako Uraraka's zero gravity quirk, throwing the ball to infinity. Nevertheless, while the students were all thinking about their scores and what their ranking meant, the teacher's eyes were narrowed in thought. While everyone else believed that All Might recommended Naruto to UA due to his capabilities, the reality was a bit different. His control over his Fox Quirk is rather impressive for a novice. He moves like someone who has trained in martial arts as well. I can see that. However, I still don't see it. I can't imagine how someone with a Fox Quirk could have killed that sludge villain. That villain's sludge was almost like a counter to most of the quirks relying on dealing physical damage. All Might had not hidden his intentions from the principal of UA, and he had even brought Shota Aizawa into the secret too once he found out that he was going to be Naruto's homeroom teacher. It was so they could better keep an eye on the boy and study his character in detail. In spite of the boring English class at the beginning of the second day, the students regained their vitality and hype once the bell rang. The reason for that was simple. The No. 1 hero, the strongest and most popular hero in the country, All Might himself, was going to teach the next class. If hearing what was the focus of the class, combat training, was not enough to make them burst with excitement, All Might telling them that their hero costumes were ready had set everyone on fire. It was pandemonium. Naruto was swept off by everyone's enthusiasm too, as he took a look at his hero costume. It was rather simple and it looked quite similar to what he used to wear in his previous life. A pair of black and orange pants and a jacket of similar colors that had a fierce 9-tailed fox painted on its back. 2 pouches filled with kunai were strapped at his thighs, and a utility belt was wrapped around his waist, its numerous pockets carrying several smoke grenades, wire, and other miscellaneous ninja tools. Lastly, a white and orange Ambu-style fox mask was covering his face, a mask that had a respiratory system built in to protect him from harmful gases. The jacket with the 9-tailed fox painted on its back, and the Ambu-style fox mask were a tribute to his former friend and lifelong companion, the 9-tailed demon fox. To show his respect for him, Naruto had even chosen his hero alias after Kyuubi's name. Kurama. Naruto's hero name was Kurama. Most of the time, fighting villains takes place outside, but if you look at the total numbers, atrocious villains appear indoors at a higher rate. Imprisonment, house arrest, backroom deals. In this society filled with heroes, truly intelligent villains hide in the shadows. All Might began to say once everyone had put on their hero costumes. For this class, you'll be split into villains and heroes and fight 2-on-2 indoor battles. At his words, the class started throwing one question after another. In spite of his inexperience as a teacher, All Might patiently explained to them everything they needed to know, and then made them draw lots to separate them into teams. Once the teams were made and lots were drawn, Naruto let out a groan. Oi oi, is this for real? It was as if universe was conspiring against him by pitting him and Bakugo against each other.
For their first class of combat training, their teacher, All Might, had come up with a simple scenario. One team would take on the role of villains while the other team would take on the role of heroes. The villains had to protect a dummy nuke and prevent the heroes from capturing it. As for the heroes, their purpose was to either defeat the villains or capture the nuke.
In contrast to Naruto's annoyance, his opponent was literally exploding with anticipation. Finally! Bakugo screamed, flames and smoke coming out of his palms from excitement. You won't be able to run this time, Uzumaki. I will pay you back tenfold for that humiliation half a year ago. I'll crush you, I'll break you, I'll blow you up to pieces, you damn bastard. According to the drawn lots, Uzumaki Naruto and Kyoka Jiro were going to be the villain team, while Bakugo Katsuki and Mineta Minoru were going to act as the hero team. All Might declared the start of the battle exercise. Villain team, go in first and set up. In 5 minutes, the hero team will break in and the battle will start. This is gonna be so good, a blonde boy said in excitement, electricity sparking in his hands. The number one in the practical exam versus the one who was recommended by All Might. This is bad. I'm shivering. Kaminari was not the only one super hyped about the fight. The rest of the boys and the girls were just as enthused.